All right, guys, that wraps up the quarterfinals. We do know who our semifinalists are. It's super exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about the match and the upcoming games as well. But we're also going to introduce a new guest. We have CCP Hilmar here. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
So most people probably know who you are by now. But for those people in the community who haven't seen you here before, could you just quickly introduce yourself and what you do at CCP?
Yeah, my name is Hilmar Pettersson. I'm the CEO of CCP. I've been with the company for now 12 years. Started initially as CTO, but now I've been CEO since, 2004.
And I think not a lot of people know this, but I think you were the programmer that made the market back in the day.
I participated in making the market, yeah. And the 3T engine and the inventory, and we were a small team back then.
And now CEO.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. We have a lot of questions for you, of course, but we're just going to wrap up the match quickly now. So we saw Nolly Secunda, which I think I might just be cursing some of these teams by
your bad luck
by backing them.
The Soundwave curse returns.
That was an unfortunate setup. So it turns out that 4 Vindicators is not better than 2 or 3 Vindicators.
Well, I think that was like sort of a gimmick team. Like it very much, if any team warps to 0 on me with 4 Vindicators, I'm just going to dunk you, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no ASB or rep that can handle the damage from 4 Vindicators.
I won't call it a gimmick. I'll call it a gamble. You're just really hoping they warp to 0 and you can just smash them.
Yeah. And so this is like, we're late in the tournament, have to bring something out that no one expects, and they pull this out. I'm
noticing that in the elimination brackets now, the Vindicator teams have not been doing so good. It's like everyone's kind of figured out how to deal with the Vindicator teams now, and they're sort of failing. People need to bring out those secret pocket setups here at the end.
So for the people that weren't entirely sure what happened on screen, it actually looked like Nolly got kited.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd when you're bringing Vindicators who are traditionally like a web.
So here's what happens. The Balgorn is not actually faster than a Vindicator. Vindicator is a naturally faster ship. And the Vindicator has an tremendous web strength bonus. But the Balgorn has a tremendous web distance, web range bonus. So as the Vindicators would approach, they would get webbed temporarily, and the Balgorn would move out. So they were able to continuously push back and keep the Vindicators in this range where they were not allowed to approach any further. And the kiting was made exceptionally easy due to the very few number of battleships. If they had more support, it would have been a big problem.
Plus, they're getting range bonuses on top of that from the Loki, who's given command bonuses probably. And then they had their flagship out there also, which is going to have an officer web, which is even more range. So he's webbing them from like 60 kilometers away. He's able to kind of keep them back while they kite him with the good range of Scorch. They can stay far enough out.
And likely each of those Balgorns had at least 2 webs on them.
Yeah.
So they were able to just have a dedicated web for each Vindicator as it approached.
And I mean, you mentioned the number of ships as well. Usually in this situation, if you're the Vindicators, you'll want to just basically wait till you get in range. But with so few ships on the field, there's no one to do the tackling so you can catch up. Like you're basically just screwed with that few players.
Sure would have helped to have a couple more frigates out there, webbing the Balgorn, slowing them down.
Yeah. Right, well that's a fairly convincing victory. If we could just finish up quickly with the graph of how our semifinals are going to look. This is the last 4 teams of the Alliance tournament. There we go. It is Unreloaded versus Pandemic Legion. How do we think that one's going to play out?
Can't wait to see if there's Vargers or not.
We have a bet going, of course, whether or not they're going to bring Vargers.
We do, in fact, have a bet. I'm going to say I really like Pandemic Legion, 1, because they're a good team, and 2, because if they win the whole thing, then Tess can say, well, if we hadn't have been up against PL in the first round, we would have been like a 2nd place team.
That happens. I like PL's setup they brought last time. I feel so much more. I mean, I picked them to win the whole tournament, so obviously I'm going with them, but I feel a lot safer about that pick after seeing that cool Widow setup they brought last time.
Because I have Hun to beat that, or to win the tournament. But after that last match, I'm not so sure anymore, because PL certainly bought exactly what you want to bring to beat Hun. And then on the other side, we have Exodus versus Verge, and I think Verge has been the positive surprise of today.
Yeah, I definitely had picked them to lose the first 2 matches they played today, and they've proved me wrong both times. So in order to not get proved wrong again, I'm probably going to favor them for making it to the championships now.
Yeah, I think that whole side of the bracket, the Verge Exodus side, was very unpredictable.
Super difficult.
I had them both out in the very first match against Agony and against Rote. So just such an interesting side of the bracket. To see these teams that nobody said, like, this is the team that will crush. Nobody was really, these were all so close. And so many very close matches as well.
And a lot of tournament veterans beaten out. I
Yeah.
mean, Raiden being beaten out. We have Rote Capel being beaten out. Agony Empire. Just a load of staple teams in the tournament just getting crushed by what seems to be a really broad field of superb teams this year.
And we were saying it earlier, I mean, this is perhaps the most competitive field we've ever had in an Alliance tournament, and it's really proving to be true.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so now that we have Hilmar here, of course we have to ask some questions because you know a lot of stuff that no one else in the company really knows. So because we have the game designers here and we have a lot of other people here, but more like some of the high level questions. So having been a CEO for so long, when someone comes up and goes, maybe we should make a shooter on the PlayStation and connect, like where do you go from going, that's a good idea, let's do it, between the whole, is this a bad idea or?
Well, I mean, obviously the idea initially wasn't really like that. It has evolved a lot. But the sort of core of the concept of Dust was, I mean, over the past decade that Eve has been running, we've had so many people come and say, well, I love the idea of the single shard, all the politics and all that, but the particular style that Eve is a very particular style of game that not everyone likes. There's a lot of people that obviously love it to death. And I mean, we've tried to sort of widen up the access to that with new player experiences and things like that. But ultimately, I mean, EVE is what it is, and that's great. So we thought, okay, what about all this sort of inbound interest that we have from the world? A lot of people reading stories about the EVE, the politics, all this sort of the realness, the energy, and the politics, and the backstabbing, and all those things that people want to participate. So we thought, okay, what is an easier access into that sort of heart of darkness, for lack of a better word. And I mean, a first-person shooter is probably the most opposite game style to EVE. So we thought that would be the most additive. Initially, it was more conceived just as an entry into the brand, not a fully connected universe. But as it evolved, then we just saw the opportunity to just fully merge it all together. And it has been merging more and more over the past 2 years than it was initially. So I mean, now pretty much it is the same game. I mean, even though the client is different, then you are participating you are on Tranquility, you are participating on the market, you're basically in the universe. So I would say it had been this sort of iterative approach of constantly sort of refining the thought and bringing it closer and closer to EVE. Because no one is smart enough to come up with the initial idea of like, oh, okay, let's bring this to bear, which we now have on our hands.
So first-person shooters, obviously, millions of people play first-person shooters. That is I think, I agree with you in the choice if you're going to try to bring a whole nother segment of the gamer community into your world. First-person shooter is a good choice. But you chose to make it consoles instead of PCs. Now, why is that?
Well, so the initial thought is that, I mean, bringing a second game to market for CCP is a big deal. And I mean, we have become very good at sort of marketing and promoting EVE Online, but we don't have a tremendous amount of publishing capability, other than the sort of very particular type of sort of publishing we've done around EVE. So by bringing it to consoles with huge support from one of the console platform owners, like Sony has committed to the title, is a great way to sort of gain a community, build it up fairly quickly, and also tap into an audience that we could never really tap into with EVE Online. The sort of typical console shooter player on the PlayStation 3 is probably the most unlikely target to go and pick up EVE and start to play it, even though, of course, it's impossible to generalize in that sort of extremes, but that is probably the audience that is the farthest away of the audience we could get into EVE.
Now, besides the choice...
Gentlemen, I'd love to have the questions, so keep hold of them. We're going to watch a quick video and then we're going to come back. So you will, of course, be able to ask the question, which I'm sure was wonderful, Michael Paul. I'm sure it was a wonderful question.
Well, yeah, right. See, what is he going to ask?
We're going to quickly go to a quick video, then we have a few more questions for Hilmar, and then we have the first semi-final match.